When it rains, it pours, and that's no surprise when it comes to the New York Mets. Unfortunately, through no fault of their own, the Mets find themselves in a tough situation. After losing Frankie Montas for the next 3 months, their pitching staff has already taken another hit. On Monday morning, it was reported that Sean Manaea has suffered an oblique strain and will be shut down indefinitely.
What'd you just say?
With their depth already thinning, it may be time for David Stearns to make a move. Let's break down the obvious options for the Mets on a new episode of Mets Post. Let's get it. Losing Frankie Montas is one thing, but losing Sean Manaea is a whole other thing. The Mets re-signed Manaea to a 3-year, $75 million deal this offseason. The move made sense because of what Manaea accomplished with the team last year. The ace-like southpaw had a great bounce-back season in Queens as he finished last year with a record of 12-6, an ERA of 3.47, and 184 strikeouts, which led to a big payday by Steve Cohen and David Stearns. But now the Mets find themselves in hot water with opening day approaching. With both Montas and Manaea out, this means that the Mets' current rotation consists of Kodai Senga, who's coming back from injury, David Peterson, Griffin Canning, Clay Holmes, with Tyler McGill and Paul Blackburn fighting for the 5th spot. This isn't the greatest winning formula, especially if there's no timetable for Manaea's return.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Which means that the ball is in David Stearns' court once again. He chose not to chase after a player like Corbin Burnes because of his disbelief in handing out long-term contracts to older players, although Burnes is only 30 years old. And we know that Sproat won't break out onto the MLB roster out of spring training, which means that the Mets have two options. They can either choose to bring back Jose Quintana, who had a stellar second half of the season with the Mets last year, but Quintana would just be a band-aid for a wound that needs to be fixed sooner rather than later. He posted a 3.75 ERA last season, but had a 3.11 ERA in the second half. He's also 36 years old, which means that the velocity is probably not where the Mets want it to be. But there is a player that is exactly what the Mets want and need. He just so happens to be available on the trade market and would cost some top-tier prospects, but if you can trade for him, then extend him, this move would fix a lot of the issues going forward.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
The Padres are said to be shopping Dylan Cease, and the Mets have checked in on him prior to these injuries, which means that there is valid interest in a 29-year-old ace. Cease could be that guy to slide in right behind Kodai Senga and would be an incredible addition to this rotation. He gives you a much-needed ace in rotation that is questionable after Senga and Manaea. As I mentioned before, do you give up Jet Williams or Luis Angel Acuna for Cease? Maybe Ryan Clifford and McNeil or Marte in exchange for Cease? The Mets could even look into having a Padres add in Robert Suarez if they could pull that off, which would bolster their bullpen and rotation in one move. Cease had an ERA of 3.47 last season, along with 224 strikeouts. He started 33 games and had 14 wins. He also pitched 189 innings last year for the Padres. The only issue is contract-wise, Cease is owed $13.7 million in 2025 and is expected to be a free agent after the season, which means he may be a rental player unless the Mets can extend him after the trade. What do you think the Mets should do? Should they trade for Dylan Cease or sign a veteran like Jose Quintana? Or do you believe that the Mets should stand pat and trust in the arms that they currently have? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm your host, Brian Cameron, and I'll see you guys next week on another episode of Mets Post. Let's go Mets.